Hi, it's Marilyn Maceri back again, your consciousness coach, back again for another episode of Conscious Awakening. And today I'm going to be doing a little bit different format than I have in the past. I have a wonderful dear friend here today. We're going to have a conversation about being your authentic self. And my dear friend here is Erin Weber. She is the owner of a Healing Place Counseling in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And we've known each other now about 4 years. She is a psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and counselor, coach. She is a fellow Conscious Awakening teacher. And like I said before, a dear, dear friend. And we're just going to have a very candid conversation about being your authentic self. So welcome, Erin. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm so excited to be doing this with you, having this wonderful opportunity. So thank you.
Me too. I feel like we've had this conversation so many times, all over the world, actually.
Yes, we have.
And now we're actually filming it. So I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be great.
I think so.
So being your authentic self, what does that really mean? You know, we hear it, it's like a cliche most of the time.
Yeah, it is.
But what does it really mean?
Wow, that's a great question. And it's actually something a conversation I have in my office all the time with my clients. And it looks different, I think, each and every time. So I think I'm learning about what that means too.
So am I.
You know, all the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Especially even being on camera, you know, where you're like trying to sit up the right way. So then you're like, no, I just want to, you know, I want to be myself.
Be comfortable.
Yeah, be comfortable and be myself. But, you know, the conversation has been evolving as I study more and as I learn about myself and as I have more of these conversations with my clients. And to me, authenticity really means really coming from your heart, you know, your heart.
Absolutely.
And not coming from a place where you're really, you know, reacting to anyone else, any institution, any other person, where you're not pushing up against something or trying not to be something, where you're actually really checking in with yourself and having that, you know, inner dialogue at a heart level, I think.
Absolutely.
And being that, you know, really being it. What about for you?
Well, yeah, actually, what you said just brought up something that, you know, I'm all about energy. That's what I talk a lot about. And so being yourself means emanating from your heart, what is true for you, not pretending. Being authentic means to me not pretending, to be authentic, to be who you truly are, to live your life in accordance with who you really are. What are your beliefs? And you know, a lot of people don't even question what they believe and why they believe what they believe.
Well, and that's really interesting too, because, you know, one of the things I find that I'm doing all the time with myself and with my clients is figuring out who they're not. And we do that by going through your beliefs and figuring out which beliefs are really serving you and what beliefs are really getting in your way. You know, one of the things I come across all the time in my office is, you know, well, I mean, I see, you know, teenage girls, teenage boys, you know, women of all ages, and you know, what seems to be a common thread with all of them is wanting to get to their authentic self. But one of the things that we first talk about is like, who's preventing them from doing that? You know, and from, you know, one of my clients will say, you know, his really conservative private school is getting in the way of him being his authentic self. Or, you know, one of my clients will say, you know, it's her husband that's preventing her from being her authentic self. And it's interesting because as we dig a little bit deeper, it really seems to be across the board what's preventing them from being their authentic self is them. You know, they're putting these cages around themselves, you know, because of these belief systems, these, I have to look a certain way, I have to be a certain way. And when we break it down, it ends up being self-imposed.
Oh, yes, it is. And why? Why is that? It's because we're taught to believe in what others think about us.
Yes.
So many people get their who they are by how others see them, instead of going within and really searching who their authentic self is outside of anyone else's opinion or thoughts. That's how you get to the authentic part of you. It's not by what others think of you, but what do you think of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll see this too with some of my clients that are actors and actresses or models, and they're all over the world. And, and we're having a conversation, we're FaceTiming, and one of the things I hear them struggling with, and it just kind of amplifies exactly what you were just talking about, just on a bigger level, that we we believe our perception of ourselves is shaped so much from other people's perception of us, or what we think it is,
right,
or what we think we're supposed to be to them. And so I find, on that level, these people really questioning, who am I? And how do I get there? How do I even get there? So, what do you? I know I've got some processes that help me, but how do you get there?
Well, how do you get there? How did I get there? That's what I can talk on.
How did you get there?
I can talk on how I got there. And it is really going within, and I examined what is it I believe, and why do I believe it? Was I taught this as a young child? Was this something that my parents taught me, or my teachers taught me, or my religion taught me? Do I really, honestly, is this helping me to be a better person? Or is it causing me to feel guilt? Or is it causing me to be ashamed? Or is it causing me to be more suppressed? And that's a question you want to ask, because if it's suppressing you, if it's really not serving you, then is it truly who you are? If it's not, I put it aside and I say, wait a minute, this isn't serving me anymore. What can I replace that with? This is what I truly believe.
And so I know you talk a lot about awareness too.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. Conscious awareness, awakening.
Yes.
And I'm right there with you, Marilyn.
And that's how I awaken, is I question. I question everything.
And that comes from an awareness you have, right? In your daily life, your interactions that other people may find they could dismiss. You're in the grocery store and what you're thinking, as you're checking out.
Yes.
It's but to you, that's a holy moment.
Let me give you an example. I was just at a psychic fair recently, and I decided to go and get a reading. And I love readings. I'm open to what they have to say, but I don't bank on every word that is given,
because you come from your authentic place.
Exactly.
No matter what, it has to resonate with you. I actually
stopped her and said, "Wait a minute. That's not true. That's not me. You may be getting information, but that's not ringing true for me." And she stopped right in the middle, and she she started all over. She reshuffled the cards and started again, and it just didn't resonate with me. So I don't accept what doesn't feel authentic to me.
I love that.
And I stopped her right in the middle, and I said, "No, that doesn't ring true for me."
I love that for so many different reasons, because a lot of the people that I work with, will go to psychics or come to me because they know I'm an empath.
Yes,
I'm very sensitive.
Yes, you are.
But I'll notice them give their power away to me, and they'll go,
That's
what
they're doing.
Yeah, what do you think? And I'll say, but what matters is what you think. What matters is what resonates with you.
Yes.
At a heart level. And that's honestly, people ask me all the time, what do you do? And it's really difficult to describe what it is I do.
Yes.
So I think I've just come in, and I think in the beginning of my career, 10 years ago when I started my private practice, I had a much more disciplined answer to that. And now I'm like, well, I kind of just hold a really safe, non-judgmental space for people to find their own way. I just hold space, a really safe, loving space for them to empower themselves.
Yes.
And I may ask some questions or, show many different pathways they could go down, but ultimately they choose. So I love that. I mean, I think
you are
that's so important.
empowering them. You are giving them the power to choose in their own life, but you're guiding. And that's what coaching does, It's consciousness coaching is the same way. I give ideas, I give things, but when people come to me for coaching as well, I do the same thing. It's like I guide them or ask questions that only they can answer. We can't answer their questions.
And I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm so glad this is a part of it, because I think a lot of the reasons why people one of the ways to get to your authentic self is seeing a coach or is seeing a therapist, a psychotherapist of some kind, because, we can help you become more aware. I think sometimes people get intimidated by that because they don't want to be judged. But if you're feeling judged, you're not in the right place.
Right.
So that's really important to tune into.
Very important.
Yes. So I love that you did that. I love that you sat there and told her, no, that doesn't resonate. Do it again. One more time.
It was maybe, I don't know where that was coming from, but it was just not resonating.
You know exactly where that's coming from. Your heart, your authentic self. One of the things that, talking about judgment, one of the things I think to me has been a huge pathway to getting to my authentic self and to helping other people get to their authentic self is noticing how we judge other people.
Oh, that's huge.
On a daily basis.
That's huge.
And the smaller the interaction, I think the more significant. The more divine. I mean, it's really, to me, it's like those are the situations where you're annoyed and you're in your car and you're stuck in traffic and you're pissed off and and you're and I'm this spiritual teacher and I'm so angry. It's like those are the moments that I really want to be conscious and aware and notice how I'm judging other people, because you will find this pathway through your judgment of other people to self-judgment.
To yourself, yes. And
absolutely. So, and that way, when you then begin to realize how you're judging yourself, you can start to realize those different cages you've put yourself in. So, for example, I was talking with somebody the other day, and she was talking about how she was in line, at a, department store, and she had her few things she was ready to check out, and the woman in front of her, had just all of these clothes and that she didn't want to try on, she just wanted to, just check out. And she was telling me, she's like, I just had so much judgment for her. I just thought, what are you doing? You're overspending, you're not even, paying attention, and, all of these things. And when we were talking about it, I was like, well, is there any, in my office, is there any way that maybe you have judgment for yourself about, your spending habits or, and lo and behold, a whole list of things came out.
Yeah.
And so she had realized, the judgment she had placed on herself about her worthiness, whether she was worthy enough to have those things. So she had judgment checking out. And although, it wasn't a conversation we were having about, saving all your money and shopping with coupons, the importance of that interaction, as far as we were concerned, was how you can view your judgment of other people to wrap it around to see how you were actually judging yourself and how those judgments are getting in the way of your peace, your happiness, and essentially your authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
as you judge others, you are judging yourself. Because that was an excellent way of putting it. Thank you for sharing that. Because what just came to me through that explanation of all of that is that judgment is really, when you're judging another, you're actually opening a window into your own soul. It's like, what is it within me when I judge something or a situation or whatever? It's like, which I had mentioned in a previous episode earlier, was when we judge something, we put it in a box and we put a lid on it and we say, no, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And we're not really opening the box and taking another look at it and saying, well, you know what? If I see it differently, if I look at it or question, like you said, you question, why am I judging it this way? Just asking that question takes the lid off the box and brings up all new possibilities of what that looks like.
It's so true, you know, because I think when you first start this process, you go, how in the world? I mean, you know, authenticity seems like such a, you know, nebulous kind of out there topic. How do you really, how can you get there? But it's through intention.
Yes.
And through the intention of being aware being more conscious of your interactions.
Absolutely.
And I think your judgment of other people is a real concrete thing that can, like you said, open the box.
Yes.
You just have to be aware of that process.
Absolutely.
And I think also as you do it, have a real compassionate lens.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
for yourself.
For yourself.
Yeah, because
mostly, yes.
Most likely you're going to go, oh my God, I'm judging everybody. You know?
And everything.
And everything.
Yeah.
But you know, we are spirit having a human experience.
Yes.
And every spiritual teacher out there judges, you know, and it's partly because we are having this human experience. That's how our brain's set up. It's set up to categorize. And discernment is not a bad thing. You know, so I'll have, you know, these, you know, sweet teenage girls come in and say, well, I want to stop judging. I want to love myself. I want to be my authentic self. But, you know, I still, you know, some of these things that I think I'm judging are valid, you know, and, you know, what do I do with that? And I'll say, well, wait a second. You're allowed to love yourself enough to have boundaries, to use discernment to what's for your highest good.
Yes.
You know?
Beautifully said.
And so that's, I think, the important distinction. You know, nobody wants you, you know, she said, well, I was at this party and this was happening and that was happening, you know, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I said, well, trust that.
Yes.
So trust that. That's trusting your authentic self.
Yes.
And, you know, and that's coming from your discernment of like what's healthy for you. So you leave the party if that's what's right for you. And when you get home and you want to judge all those people for being bad, that's where you might want to use that judgment to come back around to notice if you have any self-judgment as a means of being more loving and compassionate towards yourself.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that you are condoning that, whatever they're doing that doesn't resonate with you.
Right.
But you just use it as a little vehicle to come right back around and have a little bit more love and compassion for yourself.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening. And these are just little things. These are little tools used. And once you become aware of them, then you can start using them. And it just opens up new doorways, new pathways, new ideas, new consciousness. You know,
Totally agree.
bringing up to a higher consciousness of being aware of what your thoughts are. You know, judgments are thoughts. You can switch the thoughts.
And you know, that brought up for me too, I counsel a lot of highly sensitive people. And I think, and you know what it is to be highly sensitive.
Yes,
I
do.
certainly know what
Yes,
it is
you
to be
do.
highly sensitive.
Yes.
And I think particularly for highly sensitive people, it can be tricky being your authentic self because we feel so deeply
Yes.
what the other people around us feel. Because you, like you know, we're not just these physical bodies. We don't stop at these physical bodies. We emanate out. You know?
Yes.
We emanate out. And you talked about it in your first video, your first few videos, about what that looks like, the emotion, the feeling and motion coming out.
Right.
And highly sensitive people, whether they're aware of it or not, and hopefully through your videos and this practice and this conscious awakening, they will be more aware of it.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
well, that's our intention.
Yes. And it is when you can tell when someone comes into the room, you can feel if they're angry, you can feel if they're happy. You can just it's an energy that you're emanating all the time.
Yes, and what I find with highly sensitive people, and myself included, is that sometimes it's difficult to be your authentic self, come into your heart and really, you know, make choices, be, act, say, you know, from that place, because you're always reacting to that outside energy. And that's why a lot of highly sensitive people end up being people pleasers or recovering people pleasers. And I know all about that,
Yes.
because we feel that energy and it's so intense and it can be so harsh sometimes. So we'll end up not really speaking from our truth, but kind of speaking from a place to like placate the other person, pacify the other person, or make that energy softer.
So that you feel better.
Right.
Because if you can feeling their energy.
Right.
Yes.
So if you can make the other person feel better, then you feel good.
Better.
So it's really good to learn when you're practicing coming from your authentic place to understand you're sensitive. All comes from awareness. Everything you're teaching, understand your sensitivity, understand what you're picking up and what you're feeling in any given moment. Realize it's not yours. It's not yours to change. It's not yours to take in. It's not yours to fix. Right. But what is your responsibility is coming back in, recentering, coming back home here, and then speaking from that place.
Yes.
And I think sometimes sensitive people need tools to keep that stuff out. So it's easier to recheck in with themselves and come from that authentic place.
What comes to mind as you're saying this is a good tool to use to come back into yourself and to like reground or re-enter your own being, your own energy, is the breath. Breath work is so important. Taking that deep breath in and slowly letting it out and feeling your own energy, going deep into yourself. And then you can actually discern, is this their energy I'm feeling, or is it coming from within me? And that's the huge distinction. If you're feeling something within you that's being resonated from somebody in your energy field, in your household or at work or wherever, okay, in a store, if you can tell if somebody is angry. You can tell. A sensitive person most people can tell if someone's angry or very upset or sad, whatever. And so by going within and taking that deep breath and going within to see, is this coming from within me? Or is it something that I'm picking up from outside of me? That's a huge difference. And you can then choose to emanate whatever you are having inside of you. That's what you want to emanate out and bring to that other person your energy, your loving, your calming energy, so that they will then feel your calmness, your peace, your serenity.
Simple, isn't it? Yes. But that's why I find I won't do it. And I'll find, the people I work with won't do it because it's so simple. I think that in our information-driven society, people are looking for a new answer all the time. And that's the truth. One of the ways to disconnect from someone else or a situation and really reconnect in with you is through your breath. But I'll hear all the time, I have the sign in my office, above where typically my client will sit, and it says breathe, and it's just a reminder. And I am always like, all right, breathe. It is. And I had this teenage boy come in the other day, and we're talking about intense anxiety, and I really didn't get a word in for the first 15 minutes, and he was telling me, I've tried everything, and don't tell me to breathe, and I know he was so lovable, and I was like, okay, I won't, but that's definitely going to be what helps.
Absolutely.
The
breath is what, to me, and from what I understand about the breath is our connection to divine source. We were given the breath into our bodies at birth, right? When you are born, what happens? The first thing you do is you are encouraged to take that breath into your body, and that's how we are alive. Our bodies are alive through our breath. And it's through breathing in that you're breathing in the essence of life itself. So when you want to center yourself, when you want to come back into your authentic self, it's easily accomplished through the breath.
What a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
And you'll have people that will be, roll their eyes at that or be so cynical about what you just said. But how do you deny that? When you leave your physical self, your breath goes with it.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's
so I laugh, and I
Yeah.
get it. I mean, I get sometimes, and I like to meet people where they are. And people are, in all different kinds of spots, when it comes to, but we're all the same. We all feel the same thing. I will see somebody coming to me for the same panic, the same anxiety, and yet there are things that they're open to and things they're not open to. Got it, But what you just said to me is so powerful. And it's so simple. It's not super woo-woo. It's not super out there. You were born.
Yeah.
And you were born with this breath. And when you leave this physical body and you die, which nobody can deny, that happens.
Yeah.
It's not just for some, the metaphysical people believe in this weird thing called death. No, it happens.
It happens to all
you
of us.
take your breath with you.
Yes.
Just that simple.
Yes.
It can be just that cut and dry. And so what a
Absolutely.
beautiful, powerful way to circle it back around. The power of your breath. So that's one of the ways you do it.
Absolutely.
I like it.
It brings you into your authenticity.
And aren't you finding, new ways to describe just the simple truths?
Yes.
New ways to just describe simple truths. And for me, I'm no different. For me, when I am reconnecting with my authentic self, it is bringing myself back to these simple techniques.
Yeah.
Noticing my judgment of other people, breathing, remembering that I am responsible for myself.
Absolutely. That's so huge, Erin.
Isn't it?
Being responsible. It isn't about somebody else doing something to make you feel a certain way. Once you take responsibility for all of your emotions, for all of your thoughts and your own...
And stop taking responsibility for other people's.
Yes. That's
Because
how
you're coming from your
Yes.
authentic self, which is pure love and light.
Yes.
So how could it be bad? When you come from that place, you know that you can't be responsible for other people's worldviews, for their view of you, which is awfully freeing,
But at the same note, thank you for bringing that up, but I also want to integrate is that everyone has their right to be their own authentic self. So when you find yourself in judgment of somebody else, take a step back and say, wait a minute, I want to be my authentic self. So in doing that, when you want others to honor you for being authentic, you must also honor them for being authentic.
And if you want to wrap it around, feel gratitude for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're being their authentic self. And in essence, that's what they're emanating out.
Yes.
And so they're sending that vibration out in the world so you can then pick it up. Take that, take that.
But it's in honoring. I believe honoring everybody, every living thing, every animal, every blade of grass or tree.
It's that
everything.
It's that concept that makes it easier for me to sit across from you and say this. Because I feel like as you're watching us or as you're watching me, you're naturally going to have judgments. You're naturally going to put me in a category, but don't. Or notice that you're doing it and circle it back around and see them as self-judgments and have love and compassion.
Absolutely.
And have love and compassion there. The other thing that really comes to mind too when I'm working with people, girls and women, is what I specialize in, so that's what I'll refer to. But when I'm working with my girls and women, there's two pieces, and it's, out of Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements.
Beautiful book.
Oh, I read that, when I was 21, and it just totally changed my life. And I think I read it, every 3 years since, and it's changed my life in different ways. And I'm always going back to these really simple truths. Being impeccable with your word, not taking anything personally, not making assumptions, and always do your best.
Powerful.
I think so powerful. And he's such an eloquent speaker too. But not taking things personally, I think is really important for everyone. But, you know, in the spirit of talking about sensitive people as well, and embracing your authenticity with some of these blocks, it's really important not taking things personally.
One note on that, which just came to me, is there's this saying, and I'm sure most people have heard it before, but in case they haven't, it's very powerful, and it goes, what you say says more about you than about me.
Oh, I love that, Mare.
Because when you're judging somebody else, really, it's more about the person speaking the judgment than it is about the person they're judging.
Isn't that true?
That's why it's so important to be aware of what you're thinking and what you're judging.
And because that's about you.
It is about you.
Right.
It's really not about the other
person. So these two concepts really can act as a way, I mean, I almost see them as like two energies, kind of like in a frictional way, kind of rubbing up against yourself, kind of chipping away at anything that isn't authentic, getting to your authentic self. And it's noticing the judgment piece and how that relates back to you. You know, kind of saying it over and over again, hoping that it sinks in.
It's important.
It is.
That's the awakening part.
Yes.
When we consciously awaken to that, we can then understand where it's coming from. Again, questioning the beliefs that we were taught. Or where did that come from? Why am I judging that person in this way? What is it within me? What thought system? What belief system?
And that repetition. And not going for something new. What else is new out there? But really repeating and working with that repetition. So you have the judgment aspect of things.
Yes.
And you circle that around to look at how you're judging yourself. And then the outside piece of that is, and because you're kind of learning to master this, it helps you master not taking things personally.
Yes.
Because how could you, when you start to realize that all of your judgments are about you, not that other person.
Right.
They're about you. So now you realize from this holistic, this complete perspective that what other people see and say and do to you is 100% about them.
Yes.
It's where they're coming from.
Right.
It's their worldview.
Right.
I was talking to, a 17-year-old beautiful girl yesterday, and she was telling me about, she and her friend got in a fight, and here's what transpired and what was said. And we were working on this concept of not taking things personally.
Okay.
And then resolving things from your authentic place, what you want to do, what you really want to say from that place. But why that's so important is because you're not reacting to her. When you don't take it personally, you're not coming from a place of reaction. You're coming from a place of authenticity.
Responding. I like to say responding.
Thank you.
Not reacting, but responding.
Really responding.
There's
from
a huge difference.
Authenticity.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you for playing around with the semantics there, because that is such a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
So
you're welcome.
Oh, you're so wonderful. I just love you. So and one of the things, and she was noticing, here's what I'm taking personally.
Yes.
And I said, think of it this way. It's she is born from these two people and their line of biology, and that affects her neurobiology. And then every single situation that's happened to her from birth until now, she's shaped through different thoughts, different perceptions, ways she's been accultured, things her family's taught her to think and see a certain way, things her country has taught her to see and think a different way, and then a micro community. And now that's the lens she's now viewing this situation from. How in the world could you ever take that personally?
Right. Right.
When I was 10 years ago, I was the social worker at a high school. That's somewhat where my career started, and it was a wonderful experience. It really prepped me from understanding teenagers, in a really powerful way. But I remember walking down the hallway trying to get to a meeting, and I looked like a teenager then myself, because I was like early 20s, and some of these
you still look like a teenager.
That's I will take that. Thank you for that lovely compliment.
You're welcome.
But I've earned every year since, and so I don't want to undo any of that
Right.
because I don't want to go back to my early 20s. No thanks. Though I had a young girl stop me in the hallway, and she said, Miss Weber, are you mad at me? And I said, no, and I was thinking, probably at the time, like, I want to start my private practice. When am I going to leave this place? All these things. I wasn't thinking about
low
her.
energy.
Yeah.
Low energy thoughts.
I
so
was.
She was picking up on that.
She probably was. But how interesting she was interpreting it about
Taking it
She was taking it personally and making it about her.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, honey, I didn't even see you in the hallway. I promised I wasn't giving you a dirty look. I would never intentionally do that. I'm really sorry. She said, no, you gave me a dirty look in the hallway. And I said, I'm really sorry that you're choosing to see that. Because that's really all I could say. And that was not my truth.
Right.
And she was probably like, what?
Right.
But that's the most authentic answer I could muster up. I think about that interaction all the time.
And that was huge, a huge example of what it means to take things personally. And it had nothing to do with her. You didn't even see her. I mean, you were in your own thoughts. You were in your own place at that time, your own energy, and she interpreted personally. And that's how wars can start.
Isn't it the truth?
And disagreements between people because of misinterpretations.
So let's talk about that micro moment, because that's difficult for me as well.
Okay.
When you are in that space where you're taking it personally, and those feelings are just washing over you, and you feel like you are really in it. How do you shift out of it?
Well, again, start by taking a breath. Because I always start by taking a breath. And I ask, how can I see this differently? And I focus. And another phrase, an energy shift for me that works huge for me is, may you be blessed. And if the person, no matter what's happening in the situation, what I'm thinking is, may you be blessed. May you be blessed. And for me, it shifts the energy instantly. And I'm choosing to see this whole scenario or this whole interaction as a blessing.
And I love that. I really love that. And I think that that's really powerful. So starting with the breath. And when I was at Gabrielle Bernstein's retreat at Kripalu a few months back, she said one of the things she uses to shift out of that is something very similar, which is the light has come and I have forgiven the world.
Beautiful.
And the important piece is finding what resonates for you.
Yes.
And taking these things and not using it. Like, let's say somebody's watching this and they go, oh, you may be blessed, or the light has come and I've forgiven the world. That is, doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel good to me at all. I find that people will take it and they'll allow their judgments to be so intense that they use it as a block to stay in unforgiveness or to stay in judgment.
Yes.
So they just, it's what we call resistance, and a block.
Yes.
So if you're feeling that, it feels like, to me, like you're running up into a brick wall, or that feeling like, when, you're a little kid and, you're mad and your parents are trying to make you laugh, but you don't want to laugh.
Yes.
You're pissed.
Yes.
You wanted that ice cream and you're not getting it, and they're going to get punished for it, but they're making slave faces and you're like, that's not going to happen,
Yes.
Where you just, you resist it. So if you're doing that, notice it now, right?
Yeah, notice it.
And find the right phrase for you.
Absolutely.
That's going to shift you out of it. And maybe
Absolutely.
it's, not so spiritually based. Maybe it's more silly or ridiculous or whatever, or,
Yes,
or more
absolutely.
analytical, because that's what you need. But really honoring your authentic self and wherever you're at, and using whatever you need to shift.
Right. Again, everything is perception. So if you just switch your perception, okay, on something, you can shift the energy. That perception is energy. So when you shift your perception, you're shifting the energy. Like when I say, may you be blessed, that is a true wish. That is a true prayer for me. And I say it from the heart, and that changes me. That is energy that I shift, and then I can emanate that out rather than the anger or going into an argument or something, because there are different opinions. Everyone has their own perspective. Everyone has their own
really resonates
thoughts.
with you? I had a friend who would say,
it's in allowing that.
I had a friend who would say, they can be right and I can be right.
Yes.
We're
all right.
I had a teenage girl.
We're all right, because it's our perception.
It's our truth. And I had a teenage
Yes.
girl when we were working on some insecurity issues. She said, she can be pretty and I can be pretty, as a means of good for her.
Good for her.
This can be true and this can be true.
Yes.
But I think when you're when you're in that space of, that anger is washing over you or that unforgiveness is washing over you, it's like really finding what is in that area, like what is in that little space for you that you need to go into to shift out of. And maybe it's, may you be blessed, or
whatever resonates with your heart.
But the importance being is shifting out, right?
Exactly. Okay. Well, it works for me. That's what works for me. And so being aware of it, because everything's energy. And if we hold on to unforgiveness, if we hold on to anger, it's okay it's okay once in a while. It's okay if we want to get something out. But it's when I say when we get stuck in that energy, when we habitually live from that energy on a day-to-day basis, that's where the damage comes in. And by damage, I mean that's where it starts affecting our health and our relationships.
Because it's energy.
Yes.
And you're holding it in your body.
Yes, it's
and
devastating.
In essence, it is your whole being reacts to it.
Yes.
Reacts to that stress.
Yes.
And consequently, I'll see, and I've also experienced the opposite, which is also not coming from your authentic self, which is denying your rage, denying your anger, denying the feeling that you've been betrayed or hurt, or that somebody has offended you. Right. And you have taken it personally.
Right.
I don't think it serves us either. And, I think this can be a confusing piece.
Okay.
Because people go, well, I should just, I'm being bad. I'm not forgiving the world. I'm still angry, or I haven't shifted out of it. But I think it is a little complicated. It is a bit of a dance. I do think you have to acknowledge your feelings.
Right.
You have to check in.
Exactly.
And say,
being authentic.
This is where I'm
in
authentically at. I'm pissed. I'm angry. I'm hurt. Whatever it is. And really honoring that.
I'm talking more about people that hang on to it for years and years.
I so understand.
Some people hang on to things for 20, 30, 40 years and can't forgive or can't let it go, and they just dwell in that anger. That's more of what I'm talking about, how it can really affect your health and your well-being and your whole life, because you bring that energy into every other relationship. You bring that energy into every circumstance you bring to you, because I believe we're like a boomerang. The energy we send out comes back in the form of relationships and circumstances and events in our lives. And so when you live in the energy of anger, or you live in the energy of unforgiveness, or jealousy, or rage, or whatever those lower dense thick energies are, okay, that's what you're going to perpetually bring into your life over and over and over again. So if you're tired of it, if you're tired of experiencing the same relationships over and over again, only different people, but it's the same type of relationships, go deep inside and ask, why am I attracting these same type of people.
Oh, that's exactly what I wanted to point out last time. You said one of the other ways that you shift is you ask, how could I see this differently?
Yes, it's huge.
It is huge. And it really doesn't matter who you're asking. It's the power of that intention behind the question. Yes. So if you're asking God, if you're asking Goddess, if you're asking your highest self or your guide or angels or a grandmother who's on the other side or your journal, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's the idea that you're taking the time to pose this question and go deeper.
And willingness.
Yes,
you're opening
the
willingness to see it differently.
The willingness. That's really powerful too.
Absolutely.
Just setting the intention to be willing to shift or be willing to change or be willing to allow your authentic self to come out. One of the things I deal with a lot in my office is when people become more authentically themselves, when they start to be themselves, the vulnerability that goes along with it. How to really handle that vulnerability. What are your thoughts on that?
Handling the vulnerability. Well, you will never be happy if you're not being your authentic self. So my thoughts on that is, if you have to do it slowly, as you get to know yourself, reveal.
So having that compassion for whatever pace you're at.
Yes, exactly. Reveal yourself as you become aware of yourself. And you can do it very slowly, you can do it very gently. Some people choose to do it quickly and just, hey, this is who I am, But it's your own authentic self. You can do it any way you feel comfortable doing it, as long as you do it, as long as you are truly being who you are.
And honoring your pace.
Honoring
your pace.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense.
And being grateful for who you are. We are all unique beings. We are all unique beings. So being grateful for that uniqueness.
And the courage.
Sure.
And your willingness to just show up. And maybe it's an authentic comment that you make that really resonates with you or where you're at a given moment, or a style, or just a feeling.
You were saying, I just watched recently the movie Cinderella. And the new one? The new one.
Oh, yeah.
And they integrate and iterate that saying over and over and over throughout the whole movie. It's the theme of the movie, but it's so, so powerful. And it is, have courage and be kind. If you have courage to be your authentic self, but be kind while you're being your authentic self, be kind to everybody in every circumstance. Have courage and be kind. It's just so, so powerful words of encouragement and advice. And it's such a powerful movie. And it's done so beautifully. If anyone has a chance to,
I've seen it. It was so good. I took 4 little girls to go see it, and I think I was just one of them.
I was a little girl again when I saw that.
It was a great movie, and what a fantastic message.
Yes.
To start to slowly teach kids.
Absolutely.
Have
courage.
The courage.
Even if you have a fear around doing something, do it anyway. I mean, there's still things in my life that I fear. Once in a while, I'm like, oh my gosh, why do I have these butterflies? Why am I so fearful about this? But I'll do it anyway. I'll move forward. I'll do it anyway. And it just, step by step, things get done. Things unfold.
Don't you think self-care has something to do with that too? Your ability to do that?
Sure.
Your ability to move forward, because I'll find people or, women that I work with not taking care of themselves and then having a really difficult time pushing into some of that territory where they feel a little bit more vulnerable because they're being they're trying to let their authenticity come out. So the idea of self-care when you're working on authenticity is a huge piece, right?
Sure.
Making sure you're you have time for yourself. Because if you are constantly bombarded with to-do lists, work, kids, and sometimes people will fight me on this, like, oh, it's another thing I have to do is find time for myself. And I understand that completely. But it's important. Really scheduling. I like to look at my week and really find big holes that are really just about me.
Yep. Powerful.
And one of the things I find too is when you're just starting that process of self-care and creating space in your life for your authentic self to come on out, you will always run into resistance. You'll run into guilt. You'll run into shame. I shouldn't, take this time for myself, right? It makes me feel guilty. But doing it anyways, pushing through that, because if you are always scheduled, it's constant reaction. Maybe it's beginning with a 10-minute meditation in the morning.
And I totally understand that. I love movies. I love romance movies. I love movies that have a theme of compassion, or they teach me something, or they open up my heart in some way. And I'll schedule a movie night just for me. I mean, I'll just, whether it's a movie I already have or something I've never seen before, I really enjoy watching a movie. And so for me, that's my downtime. That's my time where I'll just sit and it's me time. And
I think that's great too, because go ahead.
I'm sorry. But everyone can find their own. Maybe it's going to get a manicure, or maybe it's reading a book. Even if you read one chapter or half a chapter a day,
Yes.
Or just going within and just sitting for 5 minutes and breathing. Focus on your breathing. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour stretch to watch a movie.
I think that's so important. And just experimenting with what works for you.
Yes.
I got the guidance earlier in this academic year in September to start taking Tuesdays off. And when I did, and I felt it. It was kind of like, I think my spirit guides telling me, listen, you need some time off. And I would bargain with that voice. And I'd be like, well, maybe I could see clients for the beginning, because I love my job. I could see them for the half, and then I just do 3 hours, and it was really firm, and it was like, no, all of Tuesday. And I started doing it really reluctantly, and I would find what do I do with myself? What am I going to do? And then I would overschedule that day. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to yoga. I'm going to meet this friend for lunch. I'm going to go see Marilyn. I'm going to, And I realized that through that process to not judge myself, that I was once again creating space, and that does not look like a neat process. To just have compassion for myself and play around with different things, and there was no right and there was no wrong. Right. But through just my willingness to listen and just my willingness to start that process, I felt better. Good. And I felt like I could access that authentic part of me more easily. And so it might not be linear.
Right.
You may not see exactly where you're going, but really taking the time to care for yourself, to create space, and to relax in whatever way you're feeling guided to, I think is a big component when you're dealing with the vulnerability of coming out with who you are.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful that we've had this time, and this is a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday, and we wouldn't have it. We would never have had it had I not listened.
See? So doors open when you listen to your guidance.
It's so true, Mare. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for saying yes. So thank you again, Erin, and thank you for tuning in today for another episode of Conscious Awakening. All of the information about Erin Weber or myself, Marilyn Maceri, can be found at the end of this video. And just want to say thank you for tuning in. What is very, very helpful is that you are open and receptive to the information that was brought here. It's life-changing and very, very powerful. It's very helpful if you listen to this over and over, to integrate the ideas that were presented here, to integrate some of the tools and techniques, to enhance your own life and to shift your consciousness and awaken to a new way of being. So thank you, thank you, thank you again. I say namaste.